All right, and welcome back to Blitzing with the Breeze, and I'm Nate,
I'm Tristan.
and we're back with our NFC quarterback rankings. Here before we had our AFC quarterback rankings, and now we're going to build off of that. Tristan, would you like to give them an explanation of each tier?
Yeah, so if you really want an explanation of each tier, I would recommend going back and watching our AFC quarterback rankings. That'll be a good explanation on what each tier kind of means. There are a few that are reserved for special people that we won't talk about. We'll go ahead and get started. First up, we had Jared Goff. Jared Goff is a guy who kind of revived his career since going to Detroit. When he was in LA, he definitely put up some nice numbers, but he definitely was flawed.
Yeah.
Had a big turnover problem. Honestly, seemed like he struggled to read defenses. I heard stories of Sean McVay having to tell him some of the defensive coverages.
Dang.
But I think since he's been in Detroit, this has been the perfect situation for him. He's got good protection. I'm curious where you're going to put him because I feel like before he was just a mid guy, but I feel like he's definitely elevated and maybe could be a franchise guy. I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point of his career, he's probably hit his ceiling. I think he's a potential franchise guy, and what I mean by that is that, if you get the right team around him, which he did this year, he can take you where you need to go. He might hit this Kirk Cousins tier where he's like, he'll elevate the team around him, he'll do a good job, he won't really make mistakes, but he'll never be like a Mahomes or a Herbert or Burrow, but he does his job at the highest level for like his ceiling. And I think that to me is a potential franchise quarterback.
Let's go ahead and move Jared Goff to potential franchise. Next up, we have Jordan Love. He has all the intangibles to be a really, really good quarterback.
Yeah.
He's got to cut out some of these turnovers and mistakes. I would say the second half of the season, he really showed his potential. I would say he's still a potential franchise guy. He's not a franchise guy yet, but I really am high on Jordan Love and what he could be.
I think Jordan Love, the first half of the season was rough. Even a little bit beyond that, I think week 11 against the Chargers was his first game where he decided to be a good quarterback. And the Brandon Staley-led defense let him be that. Anything you wanted to do, for sure, we got that, Jordan Love, I think, has really built off that game. It gave him confidence. These are people at the end of the day. Confidence and these outside things really do matter. And I think Jordan Love has all the potential to be a franchise quarterback. But as for right now, I don't think he played anything better than maybe above average. But I think he deserves to be in the potential franchise tier due to his traits.
For sure. You can go ahead and move Jordan Love up there. Next up is Kirk Cousins. I think he's the absolute definition of above average. He's never been a franchise guy, but he's always been solid. He never really makes big mistakes. He's just never been the guy on his team.
I mean, yeah, and you look at before he got hurt this year, he had 18 touchdowns to 5 picks. I always feel like Kirk Cousins is always overhated and underrated. We just put Goff in potential franchise, and I think we're doing that because of his age. I think Goff.
Yeah, I would say we know what Kirk Cousins is more than what we know Jared Goff is.
But can we ask, what is Jared Goff's ceiling the same as Kirk Cousins? If it is, then Kirk Cousins should be in a potential franchise.
And maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment because Jared Goff is just in the NFC Championship game and Kirk Cousins has never really got close.
Yeah, playoff success definitely has a factor.
Jared Goff did lead a team to the Super Bowl. I think in this situation, he's definitely proven he can be more than serviceable. I think Kirk Cousins, just off the amount of time he's played, we kind of know what he is.
Yeah, and I think, when you look at quarterbacks, a lot of people like to point to wins and success in that aspect. I think it's all about. He's played for the Vikings and the Commanders.
It's not the end-all, be-all for a quarterback, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that, due to Goff's age and the systems that he's been in and the talent around him, he's shown to be a potential franchise guy with the right team around him. I think Kirk Cousins can put up all the stats in the world, but he'll have the 32nd ranked defense, and it just doesn't matter. Which to me lets me believe he's a potential franchise guy, but I completely understand putting him above average because of his age. He's coming off an injury and big games.
And I just think he has a large sample size of some above average.
Yeah, but
One of the reasons I put all these young guys in potential franchise is because we don't have the largest sample size on them.
Yeah.
A Trevor Lawrence, realistically, he's probably played slightly above average, but I still believe that he could be a franchise guy. I still think he has more to prove. I think Kirk Cousins has already proven what he is.
Yeah, and I'm a Kirk Cousins supporter. I think he does get overhated, like I said before. So maybe that's a little bias on my end. But moving on, we have Justin Fields. How do you feel about him?
Another guy that has all the intangibles, but he is very inconsistent.
Yeah.
He holds the ball way too long, takes some bad sacks. I think it was the Buccaneers game where he had, I don't remember which receiver it was. He had somebody open, he just didn't throw it. It made no sense to me.
It was up the seam, huh?
Yeah, it was up the seam. I don't remember who it was too. I think it was like Mooney or somebody, but yeah, he hesitates way too much.
Yeah,
I think that's a problem.
He really, really struggles to read the defense, and if his first read's there, great. That he'll hit it and it'll be good from there. But
there's a lot of quarterbacks that can hit their first read.
Yeah, Mac Jones, but
he can't do that.
The way he progresses is terrible because it's usually one step hitch, and then if it's not there, he should scramble. Great scrambling quarterback. I think he's shown flashes here and there, and it's like I want to root for Justin Fields. At first, he didn't have talent around him. Now he has DJ Moore, and Cole Kmet is broken out, and Darnell Mooney's a fine 2 or 3. They try to give him talent, and there's not really much he's doing with it. I think that he's probably a mid quarterback, maybe even below that.
Yeah, I would say at this point he's not shown anything more than mid.
Yeah, and that's giving him something, I feel.
I love Justin Fields at Ohio State. He was so good. He just hasn't shown it in the NFL. I think mid is a good place for him. I'm not sure what his future is either, with Caleb Williams being one of the best prospects in the draft. I think there's a decent chance Justin Fields ends up on like an Atlanta or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Bears should actually keep Fields, trade back the number 1 overall pick. Maybe get a Marvin Harrison or a Rome Odunze or something like that.
Like a Malik Neighbors or maybe a Brook.
Yeah,
I don't know if he gets past the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think you trade back, you get extra selections, you build around Fields for the next few years, and you see from there. Cause who is to say that Caleb Williams is ever going to be better than Fields is? Because they're very similar in play style.
Yeah, I would say Caleb Williams has the Patrick Mahomes ceiling, but he also has a pretty big floor.
Really, really low floor.
Caleb Williams at times plays backyard football way too much.
His floor is rookie year Zach Wilson. Worse Zach Wilson is Caleb Williams to me.
I still think you need to take a gamble on Caleb Williams because he could potentially be a franchise-changing guy.
Yeah.
I think that's why he's number 1 on a lot of people's draft boards.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be against the Bears just completely loading up and seeing, okay, is Justin Fields the guy or not?
And, to me, I feel like they're almost better off just drafting Drake May. Get a different flavor of quarterback in there. Get someone who can, Drake May can run, sure, but get someone who's a completely different type of quarterback, and then that will really tell you system, scheme, players around them, different players. But Caleb Williams and Justin Fields have a similar enough play style, and I just don't think a rookie Caleb Williams is going to do it much better than, a third year Justin Fields?
We'll see. I think Caleb Williams still has unreal potential.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and move on to Baker Mayfield.
I love Baker Mayfield.
He had a career year, 4,000 yards, 28 TDs. I had questions about Baker Mayfield. I think him going to the Rams and actually having a decent system to play in seemed to help him a little bit, and not being in Carolina, which is pretty much a death sentence to all quarterbacks, and we'll talk about that a little later. I'm not sure where to put Baker Mayfield. I don't know if he's the franchise guy or not, but he certainly played above average last year.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. And to your point about the Rams, he's came out and said that Sean McVay and company have told him, just be Baker. We have nothing to play for anymore at that point of the season. Just be Baker Mayfield. And he kind of gained his confidence back, and I think that played a huge point into springboarding him into where he is now. And I think Baker Mayfield, he is a quarterback that desperately needs his confidence and swagger. That's who he was at Oklahoma. That's how he was early on in his career with the Browns. I think that Baker really has potential to kind of show, I was worth that number 1 overall pick. Mm-hmm. And I think he still has more to show. I really do believe that. I think his ceiling isn't too much higher, but I think he still has more ceiling to give us. And that said, I think he's above average, maybe even a potential franchise guy. I would since we have Kirk in above average, I'd probably put Baker in above average.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're the same type of player. I would say Baker Mayfield's definitely a little more aggressive.
A little bit more electric, yeah.
Yeah, but I think we do have a large enough sample size with Baker to say above average. He still misses some easy throws at times.
Yeah.
Maybe he can move up in the next year too, but I think that's a good spot for him.
And speaking of short quarterbacks, we have Bryce Young.
Yeah, Bryce Young is 5'10", 204 pounds, and in an awful situation.
Yeah.
The offensive line is horrific. Their best receiver is a dinosaur in Adam Thielen.
Hey, don't sleep on Adam Thielen though. That's the man.
I'm sorry,
But
he's just not.
he had a good year,
He's not.
but he's not a number one guy.
Maybe that was a little harsh, but Bryce Young is really hard to evaluate. But I think the Panthers are the worst situation in the entire league.
From owner to coaching
Yeah,
to
I mean,
players.
spilling drinks on fans. Like,
I feel bad for Bryce Young. I feel like
I do too.
he was drafted in a terrible situation,
The
and
worst situation.
you see guys like Baker though being drafted into a poor situation, and he kind of turned it around. So who's to say that Bryce Young can't either? But I think the difference is ownership. David Tepper doesn't look like he has any sort of emotional capacity to control himself. As it seems like the Browns owners, granted their Deshaun Watson decision was idiotic, but at that time it seemed like they really wanted to win.
Yeah, Bryce Young's really hard to rank. I almost want to put him in unproven, just because
Yeah, I
his
think that's fair.
situation was so bad. Like, it's really hard to evaluate if he's good or not.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. Moving on to a more established guy, Derek Carr.
I think he's established himself as mid.
Yeah, I think Derek Carr is extremely mid. I respect him. As a Charger fan, I've seen him up and close and personal quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think he was a fine quarterback for the Raiders. Is he anything like? I think honestly, Brock Purdy's floor is Derek Carr.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like-
I could absolutely see that. I've never been the biggest Derek Carr fan. I feel like he underperformed a lot this year. I
Yeah.
thought the Saints were going to win their division.
He got better as the
Considering it was-
season went on.
Yeah, well, he still makes questionable decisions, still makes questionable reads, and misses open people.
Yeah, he drives his receivers crazy. Like
Randomly throwing the triple coverage too.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense. I think Derek Carr's a mid guy.
yeah, like Chris Olave, like in the pre-draft process, was a standout guy. Has 1 year at Derek Carr. Now he's like I think speeding and just like doing crazy stuff.
We got Christopher Olave, we got Henry Ruggs. I mean, we got them all.
Something about Derek Carr, man. I don't know what it is, but I would also go crazy if he was throwing me the ball. But moving on. Speaking of going crazy when someone's throwing me the ball,
He's crazily bad.
It's Desmond Ridder.
is not good.
yeah,
He's bad.
He's
He's gonna get replaced. I think the Falcons. If I were the Falcons, I would look into Justin Fields maybe.
yeah.
I think they have the offensive personnel to be good. They just have Desmond Ridder as a quarterback, and he's just. I don't see a future as a starter for Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, I mean, I like Raheem Morris for the hire there in Atlanta.
Raheem Morris is definitely a player's coach for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, he's a solid dude. I think. Do you know who their offensive coordinator is?
I don't remember. I think they might have just hired him. It was Zach Robinson.
Zach
I think
Robinson.
he was the pass game coordinator on the Rams.
Yeah, no, Zach Robinson's a really good prospect for them to.
Any McVay coach is a good prospect.
Yeah,
it seems.
I think that's gonna fit. Probably more of an offense for someone like a Baker Mayfield, like a West Coast scheme. Like that's
sure.
what the Rams are. But at the same time, if he can adapt his game into being, someone who's a dual threat, that'd be great. Desmond Ridder, I think, has traits, but he doesn't have anything else.
12 touchdowns and 12 picks, I think, says enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much in the belief of developing quarterbacks, but this is second year. He showed flashes, he showed traits at times, but I don't think he's played well enough to warrant himself anything more than a pretty solid backup.
Yeah, I think he's.
So he's a bad or below average to
I
you?
would say he's bad.
He's bad? Okay.
Speaking of bad,
Oh, man.
Sam Howell started the year okay. Really fell down to earth at the end of the year, got benched. Absolute turnover machine, takes a lot of sacks. I honestly have to put him in bad at this point.
I'm a little bit higher on Sam Howell than most. I feel like, yeah, he had a lot of problems with turnovers, but he also was asked to throw the ball a lot, and I think, with the receiving core that's not really an excuse. They had great receivers. The offensive line was terrible. He would take sacks on his own as well, though. And, Sam Howell as a whole, I think shows a lot of ups and downs, lots of flashes. If Washington pulls off something crazy, maybe they trade back and they get like a receiver, or like not a receiver, but like like they get Brock Bowers or like a Joe Alt.
I think they're going to be going after Drake May.
And I would
maybe
have to
Caleb if he slips somehow.
I'm gonna have to agree. It would kind of suck for Sam Howell to be replaced by Drake May once again. I believe that happened in college for him as well. I think Howell has talent. He can run. He can really throw the deep ball. He just got to work on his decision making and not turning it over. But I hope he gets another chance with a different team or something like that down the line. But I think he showed to probably be below average is where I would rank him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the end of the season's really sticking to me a lot. He was not good.
He's very volatile. Like when he's good, he's good. When he's bad, he's really bad. So
Yeah.
kind of where do you put that?
I would just say bad because I would say the end of the season really showed that he wasn't good. I don't totally dislike Sam Howell. I mean, he got the job beating Dallas in that regular season not too long ago. I just think maybe in a different situation he could play a little better.
Yeah.
Next up is Daniel Jones.
Danny Dimes.
He signed a 4-year, $160 million contract, and safe to say he did not live up to that.
Yeah, I mean, this year was really, really tough for Danny Dimes. I think that if he can revert to his form 2 years ago now, it might be an all right contract. It might be an all right deal with inflation with the quarterback market. But
yeah, I didn't love the contract even
no,
he played before, and he really did not play well. This year,
I don't know what his outlook is. I'm very interested to see how he plays next year. I hope he gets back to where he was, but 2 touchdowns to 6 picks is tough.
Yeah. I'm going to be pretty harsh with Daniel Jones. I'm going to say he's below average at this point. I don't think he did anything last year that showed anything more.
Yeah, and I think, he has the potential to be maybe above average quarterback, but below average.
That's his ceiling is like Kirk Cousins, maybe.
And I don't know, it's still a stretch to me, but moving on, we got Dak Prescott. I think Dak Prescott is overhated. He is the Dallas Cowboys quarterback at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But puts up good stats, puts up good numbers, but he's just makes critical errors.
Yeah, Dak Prescott is just one of the more polarizing players in the league. Some people say he's elite. Some people say he's just bad. And I think a lot of it is dictated off he has little to no success in the playoffs with the Cowboys, on a team that just historically has been a winner. I mean, it's been a while. I mean, you have to get the VHS tapes to watch the previous Super Bowl. I think Dak is a franchise guy.
Franchise?
Yeah. I mean, it is difficult with his playoff success being as bad as it is. But at the end of the day, he usually puts up good numbers.
He puts up good numbers, and it's almost misleading at times because, he'll have a great game, and then he'll throw like a fourth quarter pick to lose the game or miss a throw or whatever. I feel like I've seen it constantly over and over again. But at the end of the day, he puts up good numbers. He does a good job. And I think that is enough to warrant him as a franchise quarterback.
So when I look at the elite guys, I'll go ahead and comment on this a little more. When I look at the elite guys, they come up big in moments.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott just simply has not come up big in moments.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is holding him back.
People will argue Herbert doesn't come up big in moments, but I think a lot of it is too. It's just like
it doesn't help when your defense gives up 90 yards on the last drive.
Yeah. I mean, Herbert is a very, very odd and peculiar situation. And I think that, it warrants its own kind of conversation, which we had in our AFC episode. Make sure you check that out. Moving on, we got Jalen Hurts.
He's got to show he's a franchise. I thought the year they made the Super Bowl, he was a franchise guy. He's got to show it again. Yeah. Last year was not good.
It was rough.
It was really rough. Statistically, I do think the stats are a little skewed. I mean, just the way he plays, I think his numbers are going to be a little bit lower than, let's say, a Patrick Mahomes or a Dak even.
Yeah.
But I think Jalen Hurts, at the end of the year now, I think some of it was coaching and the defense, but I think Jalen Hurts needs to prove he's a franchise guy again.
And I will have to agree that I do think he's a potential franchise quarterback. I think that, as a whole, he has all the potential. He showed that. I think he was playing hurt. I know he came out and said his knee wasn't a problem, but you can tell by the way he's running around, or he maybe sprained it or something. Like, he definitely wasn't playing 100%. He's kind of a tush-push merchant. I'm very curious to see where that goes without Jason Kelce. But I think
or if they ban it.
Yeah, or if they ban it. I don't think they should.
I don't either.
It's a football play. You know what I mean? It's like almost the epitome of, hard-nosed football. But
not every team can do it.
Exactly, and they could do it because they had Jason Kelce, Landon Dickerson, and Cam Jurgens. That's a great interior. So, but anyways, in a quarterback who squats 600 pounds.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
So,
I would say the limitation with Jalen Hurts is he doesn't have elite arm strength.
Yeah.
I would say that's his biggest limitation outside of some of his decision-making. I think he scrambles out of the pocket a little too much and puts himself in bad situations. Jalen Hurts is a little tough, but I think this is where he belongs.
Yeah, I think he'll be a fine player for a very long time. I can see him having like a maybe like a Warren Moon or like it's like an old school like Steve. Maybe not Steve Young. Steve Young is too much of a stretch, but
Yeah,
Steve Young minus the passing, a little bit more rushing. Like
yeah,
I'm trying to
for
find
sure.
a Drew Bledsoe type of career. Like
Yeah,
something,
that's not the worst thing.
there you go, something like that. But moving on, we got Kyler Murray. He's an interesting quarterback to evaluate for sure. I think he had a good year this year though.
Yeah, he's definitely a small guy. He's also 5'10", 207 pounds. Um, it was I think it was the year the Rams was 2021 ish. He played like an MVP. I think teams started figuring out, started keeping him in the pocket a little bit more, and he regressed a little bit. I think he took some steps up this year on a really bad Cardinals team.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure where to rank Kyler Murray yet. I'm curious where you think he should end up.
It is a tough position to be put in for him in the Cardinals. Doesn't really have too crazy of a receiving core. I mean, Marquise Brown's fine. Michael Wilson's up and coming. Rondell Moore wasn't great. Um, Greg Dortch is a fine number 4, but and Trey McBride, he's taking his game to the next step. But
In the draft, I'll be looking for receiver.
yeah, I would have to agree. Probably Marvin Harrison. That's going to really help this team.
For sure.
I think the defense desperately need help. I mean, you got Keitrell Clark and Star Thomas, these guys, these young DBs, but don't really think they are.
They cannot get after a quarterback.
Yeah, and their defensive line, their front seven's pretty rough too. So it's a very hard team. I think defense needs a lot of work, but I think as a whole for Kyler Murray, he's played well enough to warrant himself into the potential franchise tier.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We can.
He almost had an MVP year, and I think that alone, gives him a lot of flack.
For sure. Next up is Geno Smith. Got his opportunity with the Russell Wilson trade. I would argue he outplayed Russell Wilson towards the end, but we won't talk about that. He's an experienced veteran. He's shown flashes, but I just don't know if he's a ceiling raiser.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that'll get his team to the playoffs, and that's probably about it.
I think he's a fine guy. I'd probably put him low above average, maybe mid.
I was gonna say above average, but he does.
He had
more than service.
This year he had kind of like an okay year. I don't think he did anything too crazy or extraordinary, but I would like to see him play out this last year and see how his career goes from there. I don't think he reverts to ever being a backup unless he wants to play till he's 40, but I think he will be kind of a spot starter, like a Ryan Tannehill or someone who's not like the guaranteed guy to start. Maybe like a Taylor Heineke. I think he's better than these guys, but later on in his career, we're projecting if he still has this linear digression that he's on, we'll see where he goes from there. But for right now, I think he's an above average guy.
Next up is the Rams Super Bowl winning quarterback Matthew Stafford. If I'm ever going to show my bias as a Rams fan, I think it's right here. I think Matthew Stafford is a franchise guy. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries, and I think that really affected him last year with his elbow. He was missing a lot of throws. This year, I think he was a lot healthier.
Yeah.
Especially once his thumb healed, and he was able to lead the Rams to the playoffs. I think he's a franchise guy. I don't know if he's as good as Dak right now, but I think he's like a step behind.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a potential franchise guy, maybe a franchise quarterback. A potential franchise quarterback doesn't mean just because he is older, like he's shown to be a potential franchise guy.
I think he's shown to be a franchise guy,
especially in Detroit.
Especially the year they won the Super Bowl.
I'm just projecting for this year and next.
Yeah.
He's coming off a bunch of injuries right now from the playoff game, and it is a tough situation for him. I think he's a very, very tough, very underrated quarterback. I think he's gonna go down as one of the better quarterbacks to ever play. I just think this point in his career, it's a little tough to kind of gauge. He still has a little bit of a turnover problem, but nothing too crazy.
It was definitely a lot better this year.
Yeah. I mean, he's 35, coming off injuries. Yeah. It's kind of where is he right now? I think potential franchise, maybe franchise is where he can.
I think he's at the bottom end of franchise right now. I thought he was really good at the end of the year. The biggest thing for Matthew Stafford is his health.
Yeah.
If he can stay healthy, I think he can absolutely be here. The problem is he gets hurt a lot.
Yeah. And he plays through it.
For sure. Ribs, thumbs.
I think him and Herbert.
He was definitely concussed at the end of that Lions game.
Him and Herbert are probably the toughest quarterbacks in the entire NFL. I mean, before that, like Phillip Rivers, Herbert played with broken ribs. Matthew Stafford played with a shoulder injury that it was all out of place.
It's a long list.
Yeah, I mean, these guys have played through injury, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for doing so. I think it's very important to be tough because the best ability is availability. And they give you that. And our last guy, last pick in the draft, last in our rankings, Brock Purdy.
Yeah, Brock Purdy is a guy that absolutely came out of nowhere. Filled in for Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's been better than Jimmy Garoppolo. If we had
100%.
Jimmy Garoppolo here, I think he'd be ranked bad, but that's another story. um, I think he is fine. I don't think he's anything more than that. I think potential franchise is where he belongs relative to the other quarterbacks we have ranked. I think he could potentially be the 49ers quarterback for years to come, though.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's on that 7th round rookie contract deal. They have this really, really good window to really make it far for a while. Once they got to pay him, is he going to get paid top quarterback money, or is he going to kind of get that Danny Dimes type deal? Where Danny Dimes is overpaid, but $40 million a year is a pretty good number. That's probably what Kirk's going to get this year because he's a free agent. So I think Brock Purdy. I mean, he's earned himself so far nothing but top quarterback money. I think he, as a player, he gets bailed out at times and he has his mistakes, but 31 touchdowns and 4,200 passing yards is not something to scoff at.
Oh, no question. I think he has underrated mobility just in general. I do have on my notes here he loves throwing interceptable balls. They just don't get caught for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But I think Brock Purdy in this situation could be a franchise guy. I just think relative to everybody else, I think he's a potential franchise guy.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think he can maybe become a franchise quarterback. Become one of the best steals of all time. Kind of he is, especially if he wins the Super Bowl this year. I mean, that alone is probably as good of a story as Kurt Warner almost. Like,
For
you
sure.
know, I don't think Purdy was bagging groceries though. But anyways, this is our NFC plus AFC combined tier list of quarterbacks. Let us know what you guys think.
For sure. Feel free to comment and tell us if we don't know football or not.
Yeah, I mean, there's always gonna be someone annoyed or something. They can't please everybody, but I hope this is a fairly accurate and reasonable tier list for you guys. And I'm Nate with Blitzing of the Breeze.
I'm Tristan.
And we'll see you guys later.